Today our topic is elasticity of demand. Elasticity means the extension and contraction of anything. And when we say that elasticity of demand, it means the contraction and extension in demand. The law of demand is straightforward. It tells us that when the price of a good rises, its quantity demanded will fall. All other things remain same. The law does not indicate as to how much the quantity demanded of a good will fall with the rise in price and how much responsive demand is to a rise in price. The economists here use and measure the quantity demanded of a good to a change in price by the concept of price elasticity of demand, or sometimes simply called elasticity of demand. Now we study what is price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand measures the degree of responsiveness of the quantity demanded of good to a change in its price. Mean what is the response of demand in case of changes in price? Whether price increase or decrease, the response of demand is it is also defined as the ratio of proportionate change in quantity demanded caused by a given proportionate change in price. Price elasticity of demand is computed by dividing the percentage change in quantity demanded of a good by the percentage change in its price. Now, what is the formula of elasticity of demand? The formula for computation ED means elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. Percentage delta Q means the change in quantity demanded divided by delta price means the change in price. Now this formula can be write in simple form, that is ED elasticity of demand is equal to delta Q, a change in quantity demanded, by the delta P, a change in price, multiplied by original price divided by original quantity. Here ED stands for price elasticity of demand. Q stands for original quantity, P stands for original price, delta stands for a small change. Simple formula show is shown is easily calculation of the price elasticity of demand. With the help of this formula, we can easily calculate the price elasticity of demand. It will show us that what is the response of quantity demanded in the in the change of price of a commodity, whether it is equal to the change in price or less than or greater than change in the quantity demanded than the change in price. The price elasticity of demand is now computed by taking a simple example. Example, that is, let us suppose the price of a pencil decreases the price of a pen decreases from Rs 10 rupees per pen to the Rs 9 rupees per pen. The decrease in price and as a result its quantity demanded increases from 125 units to 150 units per day. The price elasticity of demand will be calculated easily by the formula of percentage method as it is described below. With the help of this example, we can easily understand that what is the response of quantity demanded to the changes of price. Here a point to be noted is that quantity demanded is dependent upon the changes in price. The changes of quantity demanded is dependent upon the changes in price. Here the price is independent variable and quantity demanded is dependent variable. Quantity demand depend upon price, whereas price do not depend upon quantity demanded. The changes is in price is independent, whereas changes in quantity demanded is dependent. Now we have already discussed the law of demand. Actually, law of demand show the inverse relationship between price and demand. When price decreases, demand increases, and when the price of any commodity or service decreases, its demand increases, and when the price of a commodity or service increases, its demand will be decreased. And actually, the elasticity of demand show this increase or decrease in demand due to the increase and decrease of price. Actually, demand responded is the changes in price to increase or decrease. Here in this example, it is clear that with the decrease in the price of pen, the demand is increased and the price affect the demand. Now we measure the changes in this example with the help of formula. Now here we calculate the elasticity of demand. Change in quantity is equal to 150 minus 120 is equal to 25. Percentage change in quantity is equal to 25 by 125 multiplied by 100 by 1 is equal to 20. Change in price is equal to 10 minus 9 is equal to 1. Percentage change in price 1 by 10 multiplied by 100 by 1 is equal to 10. Now we solve this example with the simple formula EP. Here we substitute D with P. D is simple elasticity of demand and EP means price elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded by percentage change in price multiplied by original price divided by original quantity. Delta show the change in quantity demanded and change delta P a change in price. Delta Q or del Q is equal to 150 minus 125 which is equal to 25 and delta P 10 minus 9 which is equal to 1. Now original quantity which was 125 units per day and the original price of pen was 10 rupees per pen. Now EP price elasticity of demand is equal to del Q by del P, a change in quantity demanded by a change in original price, change in price multiplied by P original price by Q original quantity demanded is equal to delta Q is 25 mean 150 minus 125 is equal to 25. Delta Q is 25 by delta P 10 minus 9. Original price was 10 and the change in price is 1 rupees mean 10 minus 9 is equal to 1. 25 by 1 multiplied by original price P mean original price, that is 10 rupees, by the original quantity of pen, which was 125 units. When we solve this, 25 multiplied by 10, 250 by 1 multiplied by 25 is equal to 125. When we divide 250 by 125, then its answer is 2. It means that price elasticity of demand EP is greater than 1. It means that the demand is elastic. The response of demand is more than the changes in price. It shows that demand is responding more than the changes in price. The ratio or percentage change in demand is more than the percentage change in price. Now, degrees of price elasticity of demand. We have stated that demand for a product is sensitive or responsive to price changes. The variation in demand is, however, not uniform with a change in price. In case of some product, a small change in price leads to a relatively larger change in quantity demanded. For example, a decline of 1% in price leads to 8% increase in quantity demanded. For example, a decline of 1% in price leads to 8% increase in the quantity demanded of a commodity. In such a case, the demand is said to be elastic. There are other products where the quantity demanded is relatively unresponsive to price change. A decline of 8% in price, for example, gives rise to 1% increase in quantity demanded. Demand here is said to be inelastic. The term elastic and inelastic demand do not indicate the degree of responsiveness and unresponsiveness of the quantity demanded to a change in price. The economists therefore group various degrees of elasticity of demand into 5 categories. Number 1, infinitely elastic. Number 2, perfectly inelastic. Number 3, unitary elastic. Number 4, relatively elastic. And number 5, relatively inelastic demand. Now first we study perfectly elastic demand. So here you can see on the graph the demand is perfectly elastic with no change or very small change bring very huge change in the demands. For example, the price of a sugar is 150 and if some penny the price increases, its demand will be 0, or with small decrease in price lead to infinite change in the demand. So we can say that EP is equal to infinite. Elasticity of price elasticity of demand is equal to infinite. It increases and increases. Here price is shown on y-axis and quantity demanded is shown on x-axis, and demand is whether increasing infinitely or whether reach up to 0 point, which show that demand is completely or perfectly elastic. It's responded the price very highly. Usually, the fashion goods have perfectly elastic demand. And number two, perfectly inelastic demand. It's mean the demand have no changes in the changes of price. When the quantity demanded of a good does not change at all to whatever change in price, the demand is said to be perfectly inelastic, or the elasticity of demand is zero. An exceptional case, for example, a 30% rise or fall in price lead to no change in the quantity demanded of a good. Here we can say that elasticity of demand ED is equal to 0 by 30%. The change in quantity demanded delta D is equal to 0 and the delta P is equal to 30%, which answer is 0. Here the diagram show the inelastic demand. A rise in price from OA to OC or fall in price from OC to OA causes no change, zero responsiveness in the amount demanded. ED is equal to 0 by delta P is equal to 0. We here draw the two axes, x-axis and y-axis. Here we measure the quantity demanded on x-axis, whereas we show the changes in price on the y-axis. First of all, we can say that the horizontal vertical demand curve show, which is DM, show the perfectly inelastic demand. It's mean demand have no response to changes in the price. First we can look at the diagram or graph that 0 A. 0A show the change in price, mean increase in price bring no change in quantity demanded. DM show no changes in quantity demanded. Further, the price increases more high from A to B to C. Now we can say the changes in price is A to C. Changes mean here increase in prices A to C. Whereas we can see that demand is still at his position, which is DM. Demand is not decreasing with the increase in price, it remains the same. Actually, the necessities of life have perfectly inelastic demand. For example, flour, for example, sugar, for example, tea, pulses, rice, etc. etc. Their demand do not change with the change in price. And if price fall, then the demand of normal goods increases. But in this case, with the decrease in price, demand will not increase even 1%. It has no elasticity, it has no change. It do not show the any change in demand. It is here straight line on vertical axis. We can say that ED or EP is equal to 0. The changes in price bring no changes in quantity demanded. Number 3, unitary elastic demand. The word unitary is derived from units. Unit here mean 1. Unit show 1. In inelastic demand have no response. But in unitary elastic demand mean when the quantity demanded of a good changes by exactly the same percentage as the changes in price. The demand is said to have a unitary elasticity. For example, a 30% change in price lead to 30% change in quantity demanded. It means that 30% increase in price lead toward the 30% decrease in quantity demanded, or the 30% decrease in price lead to 30% increase in quantity demanded. It means the percentage change in both the demand and price are equal. So the delta Q by delta P, 30% change in quantity demanded by 30% change in price. Which answer is, is equal to 1? When elasticity of demand is greater than 1, that is called elastic. Yeah. Here, when our answer is 1, 1 show the units. It's mean unity elasticity of demand. Equal changes in both the price and as well as in demand. We can say ED is equal to 1 or a 1% change in price causes a response of exactly 1% change in the quantity demand. In this figure, DD demand curve with unitary elasticity show that as the price falls from OA to OC, the quantity demanded increases from OB to OD. On DD demand curve, the percentage change in price bring about an exactly equal percentage in quantity at all point A, B. The demand curve of unitary elasticity is therefore a rectangular hyperbola. ED is equal to percentage del Q by percentage del P, which is equal to 1. Here we can see on the graph that we have taken the quantity demanded on x-axis and the price of y-axis. Delta P here show the changes in price, which is C to A or A to C, and delta Q here show the changes in quantity demanded where which are B to D or D to B are shown in this diagrams or graphs. Here EP, price elasticity of demand, is equal to 1. Now here we move toward the fourth, which is elastic demand. Elastic demand EP is greater than 1. When a change in price leads to a more than proportionate change in quantity demanded, the demand is said to be elastic. Mean EP is greater than 1. Its mean EP price elasticity demand is more than the changes in price. For example, if a 1% change in price causes more than 1% change in quantity demanded of a good, the demand is elastic. Alter Natively, we can say that the elasticity of demand is greater than 1 or greater than unit. For example, if the price of a good changes by 10% and it's bring a 20% change in demand. We can say that if the price of good increases by 10% or decreases by 10% and it's bring a 20% increase or decrease in demand. The price elasticity is greater than 1. ED, elasticity of demand, is equal to delta Q, which is 20% by delta P, which is 10%. When we divide 20% on 10%, then our answer is 2. The 2 is more than 1, and the values which are more than 1 show the elastic demand, mean the more changes in demand due to small changes in price. In this figure, D curve is relatively elastic along its entire length. As the price falls from OC, OA to OC, the demand for the good extends from OB to ON. That is, the increase in quantity demanded is more than the proportionate to the fall in price. The slope of demand curve is much flatter. Here we can say the demand curve is much flatter. ED, elasticity of demand, is equal to percentage del Q divided by percentage del P, which is equal to greater than 1. Percentage elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded by percentage change in price. That is more than 1 are greater than 1, which show the relatively elastic demand. Here we can see that we have taken the quantity demanded on x-axis and the price of commodity on the y-axis. Both have inverse relationship. The increase or decrease in price bring decrease or increase in price. But here in this case the decrease and increase in quantity demanded is more than the increase or decrease in price. It is more flatter than the unity elastic demand. Now here we move toward the number 5, a fifth degree of price elasticity of demand. When a change in price causes a less than proportionate change in quantity, demand demand is said to be inelastic. Mean the change in quantity demanded is less than the change in price. It's mean, for example, it's mean that the increase in price is more than the decrease in demand, or the decrease in price is more than the increase in demand. It means that demand is responding but less than 1. Elasticity of demand is equal to 10%. The change in quantity demanded is equal to 10% by the change in price delta P is equal to 30%. When we divide the changes in demand by the changes in price, mean 10% by the 30%, then it become 1 by 3, which is equal to 0.33. Elasticity of demand is equal to 0.33. In this figure, DD demand curve is relatively inelastic as the price fall from OA to OC. The quantity demanded of the good increases from OB to ON units. The increase in the quantity demanded is here less than proportionate to the fall in price. Point should be noted here is that the slope of a demand curve is not a reliable indicator of elasticity. A flat slope of a demand curve must not mean elastic demand. Similarly, a steep slope on demand curve must not necessarily mean inelastic demand. The reason is that the slope is expressed in terms of units of the problem. If we change the units of problem, we can get a different slope of the demand curve. The elasticity, on the other hand, is the percentage change in quantity demanded to the corresponding percentage change in price. In this diagram, we can see that we have taken the price on the y-axis because price is the independent variable, and we have taken the quantity demanded on the x-axis, and the quantity demand is dependent variable. In this diagram, we can see that in the mid of AC, the value delta P show the change in price, which is from C to A or A to C. And on the x-axis, in the mid of Bn, the value show delta Q. It means the change in quantity demanded.